The rain never stopped on Outpost 9, a lonely Terran trade colony at the edge of Zarkonian space. The streets were narrow, slick with neon reflections and runoff from the upper decks. People hurried through the drizzle, keeping their heads down, afraid of eye contact. This place was where broken things were traded. Old machines, expired food packs, and sometimes people. Captain Sarah Chan had seen her share of cruelty, but tonight felt different. She was returning from the lower docks after another supply dispute with a group of Zarkonian merchants. Their eyes had glowed cold through their helmets, their words sharp and greedy. She was tired of it, the endless bargaining, the feeling that human compassion had no currency out here. As she walked past the alley behind the market, she heard it, a voice, soft and shaking. "Please, I can be useful. Please don't send me away." Sarah froze. The voice didn't sound human. It came from behind a stack of rusted crates. When she looked closer, she saw her, a thin, blue-skinned girl curled against the wall. Her clothes were torn, soaked from the rain. Her long white hair clung to her face, and her hands trembled as she tried to hide a small collar device around her neck. Sarah crouched. "Hey," she said gently. "Are you hurt?" The girl lifted her head, startled. Her eyes were bright silver, too large, too full of fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Please don't report me. They'll take me back. I can work. I can clean. I can stay quiet." Sarah frowned. "Who'll take you back?" "The traders," she said. "The Zarkonians. I escaped from their ship. I wasn't supposed to. They said, if they find me again, they'll erase me." Sarah's stomach turned. She'd heard rumors. Zarkonian ships using captured alien refugees for labor, or worse. "You escaped them? How long ago?" "3 days, the girl whispered. "No food. I just wanted a place to stay." Sarah exhaled, torn. Harboring a fugitive, especially one marked by Zarkonian property tech, was against Confederacy law. But leaving her here was unthinkable. "What's your name?" Sarah asked. The girl hesitated. "Zex," she said softly. "It means shadow that listens." "Zex?" Sarah repeated. "Okay, listen. I'm not going to turn you in." Zex blinked, unsure if she heard right. "You're not?" "No, but you can't stay here. Come with me." Sarah took off her coat and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. Zex flinched at the contact, as if unused to being touched gently. "It's warm," she murmured, almost in disbelief. As they moved through the rain, people stared. A few humans gave Sarah uneasy looks. No one wanted trouble with the Zarkonians. But Sarah ignored them. She led Zex to her small quarters near the landing pads, a narrow room lined with gear and tools. "Sit," Sarah said. "I'll get you something to eat." Zex obeyed instantly, kneeling on the floor like a servant. Sarah frowned. "No, sit on the chair." "You don't have to kneel." Zex looked confused, but did as told. When Sarah handed her a steaming bowl of noodles, the girl stared at it, then at her. "For me?" "Yes," Sarah said. "Eat." Zex took a small bite, then another. Tears filled her silver eyes. "It's warm," she said again, as if the word meant more than food. Sarah leaned against the counter, watching her. "You really thought I'd throw you out?" "Everyone does," Zex said between bites. "When people see my collar, they walk away." She touched the device at her throat. "It says I belong to the Zarkonian Guild. It broadcasts a code. They can find me." Sarah's brows furrowed. "We'll take it off." "You can't," Zex said quickly. "If you try, it will burn. I saw it happen before." Sarah crossed her arms. "I've got a friend, a tech specialist named Min Jun. He can disable it safely." Zex's eyes widened. Why would you do that for me? Because no one deserves to live in fear, Sarah said simply. For a long time, the only sound was the rain tapping against the metal roof. Zex finally whispered, "You're different." Sarah smiled faintly. "So they tell me." Later, as Zex dozed off in the corner, Sarah sat by the window, watching the neon lights flicker outside. She knew what she had just done. She had crossed a line. Harboring a runaway from the Zarkonians could mean losing her rank, her freedom, even her life. But as she looked at the sleeping girl, curled up under her coat, she knew she wouldn't change a thing. Somewhere beyond the rain, a distant thunder rumbled, the sound of a ship landing. Sarah's gut tightened. The Zarkonians were still docked nearby Dot, and if they were searching for someone, they'd start soon. The next morning on Outpost 9 began with sirens. The colony's speakers crackled to life, broadcasting a rough, metallic voice that made Sarah's heart stop. "Attention, residents. By order of the Zarkonian Trade Authority, a fugitive labor asset has escaped lawful custody. Harboring said asset is a violation of Confederacy trade law. A reward will be given for any information." Sarah looked toward the small cot in the corner for quarters. Zex was awake now, sitting up with wide eyes. She'd pulled Sarah's coat tight around her shoulders, trembling as the voice continued outside. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "They'll smell my signal." "The caller?" "It's still active." Sarah crouched beside her. "Then we disable it before they find you." Zex shook her head. "You can't. If you touch the seal node, it will trigger the burn command." Sarah placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "I won't touch it. But someone I know might know how to." Minutes later, Sarah was already moving through the lower maintenance corridor toward Min-Jun Park's workshop, a narrow room crammed with parts, glowing screens, and the smell of machine oil. Min-Jun was hunched over a table, his short black hair messy, his sleeves rolled up. He said without looking up, "You're 2 hours early or 10 hours late. Either way, what's broken this time?" Sarah hesitated, then stepped aside. Behind her, Zex stood quietly, trying to make herself small. Min-Jun froze when he saw her. "Is that a Zarkonian inventor mark on her neck?" "She's a runaway," Sarah said. "And before you say it, yes, I know what that means." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Sarah, the last time you broke a trade code, Command gave me a 12-page lecture about human interference policy. This," he gestured toward Zex, "this is way worse." "I need the collar off," Sarah said. "Can you do it?" Min-Jun groaned. "You're asking me to tamper with guild tech. If it explodes, she's gone. If they trace it, we're both done." Zex's voice trembled. "Please, I can be useful. I can work for you, clean, fix things. I won't be a burden. Just don't send me back." Something in her tone made him stop. He looked at Sarah, then back at the girl's silver eyes. They weren't pleading for pity, just existence. "Fine," Min-Jun muttered. "But you owe me big." He motioned for Zex to sit. "Stay still. This thing has a fail-safe node. I'll try to scramble it before it pings the Zarkonians." Sarah stood nearby, one hand on her pistol, the other clutching her wrist comb. Outside, through the grated vents, she could hear the low hum of patrol drones moving through the streets. Min-Jun powered up a small pulse device. It emitted a faint blue glow as he moved it near Zex's collar. "This thing's wired to a biosignal loop," he said. "If it detects tampering, it injects a nanite shock. I can bypass it with—" The collar beeped. Zex gasped in pain as a spark jumped across her neck. "Stop!" Sarah shouted. Min-Jun quickly pressed a button on the pulse tool. The beeping stopped, replaced by a faint whine. "I've frozen the feedback loop," he said. "But the signal's still live, So they can still track her? Sarah asked. Not for long, he said. Give me 5 more minutes. Before Sarah could reply, a loud thud echoed from outside, the sound of boots hitting metal. A patrol drone hovered past the window, scanning the street below. CEX single quotes S breathing quickened. They're close. Sarah grabbed her comb. Seo Yun, I need a diversion on Dock Lane. Zarkonian patrol. Now, her friend's calm voice came back through static. Copy that. I can reroute a power surge through the north grid. You've got maybe 90 seconds. Do it. Minjun's hands moved faster. Sweat rolled down his temple. Almost. Got it. The pulse device flickered, then went dark. The collar let out a long tone, and the red light on it blinked once, then went out. ZEX froze, afraid to move. Is it dead? Minjun leaned back, exhaling. Completely fried. No signal, no tracker. You're free. Zex's trembling hand went to her neck. She touched the metal ring, then looked up, her eyes full of disbelief. Free. She repeated softly, as if testing the word for the first time. Sarah smiled faintly. Welcome to being inconveniently alive. Before they could celebrate, the workshop door slammed open. A Zarkonian guard stormed in, armor glinting under the lights. His voice was deep and mechanical. This sector is under inspection. Report your activities. Minjun stiffened. Just repairs. Civilian maintenance. The guard's eyes scanned the room. His helmet sensors whirred, then paused on Zex. Identifier. Sarah stepped forward, blocking his view. She's a refugee under Terran protection. That's impossible, the guard hissed. We detected guild technology here. Sarah smiled thinly. Your scanners must be broken. Want to file a complaint with my commander? I'll call him right now. The guard hesitated. Few dared challenge humans in Confederacy zones. The political risk wasn't worth it. He glared but stepped back. We will return, he warned, before leaving Dot as the door closed. Zex collapsed in relief. Sarah knelt beside her. You okay? Zex nodded weakly, tears mixing with the grease on her face. You didn't let him take me. Not on my watch, Sarah said. We'll find a place off-world for you. Minjun looked between them. You realize what just started, right? The Zarkonians won't stop now. Sarah's jaw tightened. Then we don't hide anymore. Through the small workshop window, the rain had stopped, but storm clouds were still gathering. Somewhere beyond the colony lights, Zarkonian ships were already preparing for something worse. Dot, and for Sarah, Minjun, and the fragile girl named Zex. There, the rain had stopped on Outpost 9, but the air still smelled of iron and tension. Floodlights swept across the landing pads, glinting off wet metal and the oily puddles left behind. Every shadow looked suspicious now. Sarah Chun stood on the balcony above the docks, her eyes tracing the blinking beacons of departing ships. None of them were safe enough to hide ZEX. Inside the maintenance bay below. Minjun Park and Dr. Seo Yung were busy prepping a transport module. Zex sat quietly on a crate, her bare feet dangling, her newly freed neck wrapped in a bandage. The broken collar lay nearby cold, lifeless metal, a reminder of what she had escaped. They'll scan every outbound ship, Minjun muttered as he worked. Zarkonians placed patrol drones in orbit. Even if we get her on board, they'll trace her genetic signature. Then we need to change it, Seo Yan said. She was a medical officer, practical and calm. Her brown hair was tied back, her hands steady as she unpacked a portable medkit. The guild registers DNA markers from the collar link. I can splice a masking code into her bloodstream. It'll trick scanners for a few days. Sarah nodded. Do it. Zex tensed as Seo Yan approached. Will it hurt? A little, the doctor said softly. But only for a moment. Zex nodded. Pain I can handle. Fear. Not so much. Sarah crouched beside her. You've handled both better than most soldiers I know. Zex looked down, her silver eyes glimmering under the harsh lights. When people hurt me before, I stayed quiet. I thought if I obeyed, I'd survive. But you didn't ask me to serve. You asked me to stand. Sarah smiled faintly. And you did. Seo Yun injected the serum gently. A faint shimmer passed through Zex's skin, fading after a few seconds. Done, the doctor said. Your biosignature is now coded as Terran hybrid. No one will question it. Before Sarah could thank her, Minjun's com beeped sharply. Incoming ships, he said grimly. Not Confederacy. Zarkonian transponders. Sarah's stomach clenched. How many? 3? No, 4. Dropships. They're coming in fast. Get Zex to the launch bay, Sarah ordered. Ezio Yan prepped the escape shuttle. I'll buy us time. Min Jun grabbed her arm. You can't take them on alone. I don't plan to, Sarah said. But if they find us before Zex is off this planet, it's over. As she left the bay, the outpost's warning sirens began to wail again. The walls shook as the first Zarkonian ship entered atmosphere. Fire streaked across the sky like red lightning. Zex ran behind Seo Yun and Minjun, her heart pounding. They'll kill her, she whispered. Seo Yan shook her head. Sarah's not that easy to kill. On the main deck, Sarah ducked behind a crate as the first dropship landed with a deafening roar. Zarkonian soldiers poured out, tall, armored, their red armor gleaming under the lights. Their leader stepped forward, massive and scarred. Zircon, the same guild commander who had owned Zex's collar. His voice thundered through the com channel. Captain Chun, you have something that belongs to us. Hand her over, and your people live. Sarah stood slowly, pistol raised. She doesn't belong to anyone. Zircon's laugh rumbled like distant thunder. You humans and your moral illusions. She is property, built to serve. You can't rewrite her purpose. Watch me, Sarah said. He gestured, and his soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts hissed across the dock. Sarah dove behind a transport hull, returning precise shots that took 2 of them down. The air filled with the stench of burned metal and ozone. In the launch bay, Min Jun's fingers flew across the control console. Fuel cells ready. Engines online. Ezio Yan strapped Zex into a seat. Hold tight, and whatever happens, don't look back. Zex's voice shook. She'll die because of me. No, Seo Yan said firmly. She's fighting so you can live. Don't waste that. Back on the deck, Sarah's com crackled. Engines ready, Minjun said. Go. She shouted. I'll cover your launch. She sprinted across the platform, firing at the advancing soldiers. Zircon roared, charging through the smoke. Sarah threw a flash charge, the explosion lighting the rain-slick surface. The shuttle engine screamed to life behind her. Inside, Zex gripped the armrest, trembling. Through the viewport, she could see Sarah, small against the fire and chaos, standing her ground. She's still out there. Zex cried. Min Jun's jaw tightened. If we wait, we all die. Then you'll have to drag me away, Zex said. Before anyone could respond, Sarah's voice cut through the com. Zex, listen to me. You get out of here. Live, that's how you win. Zex's throat closed. Sarah, go. The shuttle lifted off, engines roaring. The shock wave knocked Zircon back. Sarah fired one last shot, hitting a fuel tank. The explosion ripped through the deck, throwing her to the ground. Fire and metal rained around her as the Zarkonians scrambled. From above, Zex watched the outpost shrinking below, a burning womb against the dark planet. Tears streaked down her face. She's gone. Seo Yan put a hand on her shoulder. No, she's still fighting. Minutes later, the shuttle broke through the clouds, entering the calm black of space. The stars spread out before them, endless. Quiet and free, Zex stared out the viewport, whispering, "I'll come back for you." Sarah, down on the surface, amid the burning wreckage. A battered figure crawled out from under debris. Sarah coughed, blood on her lips, but alive. Above her, the Zarkonian ships retreated, chasing the shuttle's trail. She looked up at the stars and smiled faintly. "Run, kid," she whispered. "Make it mean something." The stars burned sharp and cold outside the shuttle's windows as it tore through hyperspace. The hum of the engines filled the silence, steady but tense. Inside, the air was thick with smoke from the damaged thrusters and the sound of shallow breathing. Zex sat strapped in her seat, eyes fixed on the streaking stars beyond the glass. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of her blanket. She could still see it, the flames, the chaos, the moment Sarah disappeared beneath falling metal. "She's alive," Seo Yan Yung said quietly, watching her from across the cabin. "Sarah Chun doesn't die that easily." Zex didn't answer. Her throat ached, her heart heavier than it had ever been. "She freed me," she whispered. "I left her behind." Min Jun Park adjusted the shuttle's course, sweat glistening on his forehead. "If we'd stayed, we'd all be dead." Sarah knew that. But she believed in something, Zex said, her voice small. "If I don't go back, what does that make me?" Seo Yan crouched beside her. "It makes you the reason she fought at all. Don't let her sacrifice turn into guilt. Turn it into strength." The shuttle jolted violently. Warning lights flared red across the control panel. Min Jun cursed under his breath. "We've got a tail. Zarkonian interceptor fast, light armor. How far?" Seo Yan asked. "Too close." Through the viewport, a red glow streaked across the darkness. A pursuing ship, its engines burning bright. The Zarkonian insignia shimmered on its hull. "They locked onto our warp trail," Min Jun said. "They must have tracked the collar's last ping before it was fried. Can you lose them?" Seo Yan asked. "Maybe, but not with this damage." Zex looked between them, panic creeping into her chest. "Then we fight." Min Jun turned, half laughing. "Fight? You ever fired a weapon before?" Zex's silver eyes hardened. "I watched my people die with their hands tied. Never again." There was something fierce in her tone, quiet but unshakable. Min Jun nodded once. "All right. Strap in." Seo Yan, man the side turrets. The shuttle banked sharply, stars twisting into streaks of light. The Zarkonian ship fired. Plasma bolts tore past, shaking the hull. "Returning fire." Seo Yun shouted. The cannons roared, lighting up the void. One hit grazed the enemy ship, sending sparks across its armor. Zex watched, eyes wide. Every vibration, every flash, felt like a storm in her chest. Then something inside her clicked, an instinct born of fear and defiance. She ran to the console beside Min Jun. "Let me help." He hesitated. "You can't even read the system interface." "Maybe not, but I can feel it." Before he could stop her, she placed her hand on the side panel. The energy flickered under her touch. Her species, the Zerathi, had a faint empathic resonance with machine circuits. The shuttle's sensors stabilized, reading patterns more clearly. "What did you just do?" Min Jun asked, astonished. "I told it what it wants to do. Survive. she said simply. Co-Yeon grinned. I'm starting to see why Sarah risked everything for you. The Zarkonian ship fired again. The blast hit the aft engine, spinning the shuttle off axis. We're losing stabilizers. Minjun shouted. Zex closed her eyes, pressing both palms to the console. The hum deepened, a soft pulse spreading through the cabin. The damaged circuits flickered, realigned, and locked back into place. Thrusters back online, Minjun breathed. How? Was no going back. Zex opened her eyes. You humans talk to machines with tools. We talk to them with will. He smiled faintly. Remind me never to underestimate you again. The shuttle surged forward, engines flaring brighter. Seoyin's next volley hit the enemy's stabilizer fin, spinning it away in a trail of fire. They're falling back. The crew cheered, but Zex didn't smile. Her gaze drifted toward the stars behind them, toward the burning planet they'd left. She's still down there, she whispered. Seoyan rested a hand on her shoulder. Then we find her. Do you really think we can? Sarah Chun is the most stubborn woman in the Confederacy, Minjun said. If there's air, she's breathing it. Hours later, the shuttle dropped out of hyperspace near an abandoned refueling station, orbiting a pale blue gas giant. They docked quietly, running dark dot as the engines powered down. The silence returned. Minjun leaned back in his seat, exhausted. We'll rest here. No signals, no lights. They can't trace us. Zex nodded, but didn't move. She stared out the viewport again. You humans, you help even when it costs you everything. Seo Yan smiled softly. That's kind of our thing. Zex lowered her head. If she's alive, I'll find her. And when I do, I'll tell her what she did mattered. Outside, the station floated in the endless dark, a tiny spark in the void, far below. On the ruined surface of Outpost 9, the storm had quieted. Amid the wreckage, a faint beacon pulsed weakly, the emergency signal of Captain Sarah Chun's survival suit. She opened her eyes, coughing through the smoke. Her hand went to her broken comb. It still glowed faintly with one signal trace. Zex, active, alive. A tired smile touched her lips. Good girl, she whispered. Now hold on. I'm coming. Above, in the vast silence of space, one human and one alien were already bound by something no empire could erase. A promise made in the dark, that compassion was not weakness, and that no soul deserved to be thrown away. Smoke still rose from the ruins of Outpost 9, curling into the orange-gray sky. The once bustling trade colony now lay in silence, its streets torn, its towers blackened. Amid the wreckage, Captain Sarah Chun dragged herself across a field of shattered steel. One arm pressed against her side. Her uniform was torn, her breath ragged, but her eyes burned with focus. Her wristcomb crackled with static, but through the noise she could hear faint, broken voices. Zex's voice, distant yet alive. Sarah, please. If you hear this. She smiled through the pain. I hear you, kid, she whispered. She limped toward the old communications tower, half collapsed, sparking with dead lights. She needed a signal strong enough to reach orbit. Above, the faint trails of Zarkonian cruisers glowed red as they searched for survivors. Sarah gritted her teeth. Not today, she muttered, pulling herself up the twisted ladder to the top deck. She reconnected the tower's power lines manually, splicing wires with trembling fingers. Sparks bit at her skin, but she didn't stop. Come on, you old thing, she said, punching the panel. The console flickered weakly to life. She keyed in a short-band distress code, not the standard Confederacy signal, but one Minjun had programmed years ago for emergencies. It pulsed once, twice then. The screen went green. Up in orbit, the shuttle's radar pinged. Min-jun Park blinked in disbelief. That's Sarah's signal. SEO Yan Yung leaned forward. Coordinates locked? Got them. She's alive. Across the cabin, Zex froze. Her silver eyes widened. Alive? Min-jun nodded, grinning. You better strap in. We're going back. Zex's hands trembled as she buckled herself into the co-pilot seat. Her voice was barely a whisper. I knew she wouldn't die. She promised. The shuttle roared as Min-jun disengaged orbit, diving toward the scarred world below. Flames licked the hull as they entered atmosphere, turbulence shaking the cabin. On the surface, Sarah stood atop the communications tower, squinting up at the dark sky. A low rumble echoed, not thunder, but engines. A familiar shape broke through the clouds. She laughed weakly. Took you long enough. The shuttle touched down hard near the wreckage. Dust billowed around it as the ramp lowered. Zex bolted down before the landing gears had even cooled. Sarah. Sarah turned just as Zex ran into her arms. The force of the embrace almost knocked her down, but she didn't care. She wrapped her arms around the trembling girl, holding her tight. You came back, Sarah murmured. I told you I would, Zex said, her voice breaking. You said to live, but living meant finding you. Sarah smiled through her tears. Guess I'm not that easy to lose. Min-jun and Sao Yan approached, scanning the area. We don't have long, Min-jun said. Zarkonians are still in orbit. Sarah nodded. Then let's finish what we started. She limped toward the wrecked guild control core, the main server where the Zarkonians kept their caller registry. If we destroy their database, she said, every caller across the sector becomes useless. Co Yin's eyes widened. You'd free all their captives. Exactly, Sarah said, plugging a power cell into the damaged terminal. They enslaved thousands, maybe more. We end it here. Zex stepped forward. Let me help. Sarah hesitated. It's dangerous. The core's unstable. Zex smiled faintly. So am I. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them against the console. Energy pulsed beneath her skin, spreading through the wires like living light. The machine screamed as code unraveled, systems collapsing one by one. Zex, that's enough, Sarah shouted. Almost there. Zex whispered. The glow grew brighter, flooding the room. Then silence. The console's lights died. The caller network was gone. Zex stumbled backward, gasping. Sarah caught her before she fell. You did it, Sarah said softly. Zex's lips curved into a weak smile. Now no one has to live in chains. Outside, alarms blared as Zarkonian cruisers began to withdraw, their control systems failing. Across the galaxy, enslaved beings lifted their heads as the collars around their necks fell dark. Min-jun stared at the sky. You too just started a revolution. Sarah looked down at Zex. She did. I just made sure someone listened. The shuttle engines fired up again, lifting them from the scorched ground. Through the viewport, the outpost shrank beneath them, nothing but smoke and ruin now. But to Zex, it no longer looked like a graveyard. It looked like an ending that had finally given way to something new. Hours later, aboard the Aurora Gate medical bay, Zex lay resting while Co Yeon treated her burns. Sarah stood by the window, watching the stars. Min-jun joined her. Command's not happy. You destroyed half a guild fleet and freed their slaves. Sarah smirked. Good, let them be angry. He chuckled. So what now? She turned to the bed where Zex slept, her breathing calm at last. Now we teach her what freedom means. Zex stirred, her voice soft. Sarah? Sarah moved closer. Yeah? Do you think people can change? Sarah smiled. I think they can learn. And you're going to help them do it? Zex looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then that's what I'll be useful for. Not cleaning floors, but cleaning hearts. Sarah laughed quietly. You really have a way with words, kid. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered brighter. Somewhere across those lights, a new signal was spreading. One message, broadcast across hundreds of worlds. Freedom begins with one act of kindness. Zex smiled in her sleep as Sarah whispered, You changed your fate, Zex. And maybe ours too. The Aurora Gate sailed onward into the endless dark, carrying with it two souls, one human, one alien, bound not by blood, but by choice, and across the stars. The story of the girl who pleaded to be useful, and the human who listened, became legend. 2 months passed since the fall of Outpost 9. Across the Rin systems, faint signals carried through the void, whispers of rebellion, of collars that no longer glowed red, of enslaved people suddenly finding themselves free. Most had never heard the names Sarah Chun or Zex, yet every new uprising carried the same words. If you can be kind, you can be powerful. Aboard the Aurora Gate, the quiet hum of life returned. The ship now served not only as a medical vessel, but as the first mobile humanitarian response division of the Confederacy. Crews worked day and night, rescuing refugees from broken colonies, escorting them to safer worlds. It was the beginning of something fragile and something beautiful. Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck, her arm still in a sling, staring at the streaking lights of hyperspace. Her reflection in the glass looked older, sharper. The uniform no longer felt like armor. It felt like a responsibility. Behind her, soft footsteps echoed. You're awake, she said, without turning. Zex smiled faintly. Couldn't sleep. Dreams are too loud now. Sarah chuckled. You earned the right to loud dreams. Zex walked to the window, her silver eyes reflecting the drifting stars. There are so many places out there, she said softly. So many still in chains. And that's why we keep moving, Sarah said. Zex nodded, then reached into the pocket of her new Confederacy vest and pulled out a small metal fragment, the broken shard of her collar. She set it gently on the window ledge. I used to think this was all I was. Now I keep it to remind me I was wrong. Sarah looked at the fragment for a long time. You know, she said quietly, when I found you in that alley, I thought I was saving you. But maybe you saved me too. Zex tilted her head. You don't need saving. Sarah smiled. Everyone does sometimes. You reminded me why I joined the service, not to follow orders, but to protect people who can't protect themselves. Before Zex could reply, Lieutenant Minjun Park's voice came through the intercom. Captain Shun, Admiral Jung-hoon wants you in the command room. Priority signal from the frontier. Sarah sighed. Duty calls. Zex turned to leave, but Sarah stopped her. You're coming too. When they arrived at the command deck, the holomap displayed a cluster of blinking red zones, border worlds under siege. Admiral Jung-hoon's hologram flickered above the table. His face serious, but not unkind. Captain, he said, our scouts report multiple distress calls from the Kalari Belt. Slaver fleets regrouping under a new banner. They're calling themselves the Zarkonian Restoration League. Looks like they want their slaves back. Sarah frowned. They won't get them. That's why I'm assigning your team, Jung-hoon said. Then he looked at Zex. And you, young one, your testimony about the guild's operations helped save hundreds. Are you ready to face what's left of them? Zex's hands tightened, but her voice was steady. Yes, Admiral. I'm not afraid anymore. Jung-hoon nodded. Then you'd better make sure they remember that. When the hologram faded, Sarah turned to her crew. Prep the ship. We leave within the hour. As everyone hurried to their stations, Zex lingered by the viewport again. The stars outside looked the same as always, endless, cold, indifferent. Yet now she felt something different beneath their silence. A heartbeat. A rhythm that matched her own. Sarah joined her, holding 2 mugs of synthetic tea. "You sure about this?" she asked. Zex took the mug, smiling faintly. "If I can stop one more child from begging to be useful, it's worth it." Sarah clinked her cup against hers. "That's the spirit." The intercom chimed again. Navigation online. Coordinates locked for the Kalari belt. The ship rumbled as it prepared to jump. Zex took a deep breath, watching the stars bend into lines of light. "Sarah?" she asked softly. "Yeah? When this is over, do you think we'll finally have peace?" Sarah hesitated, then smiled. "Peace isn't something that just happens, Zex. It's something people build, one act of kindness at a time." Zex nodded slowly, her hand resting on the glass. "Then we'll keep building." The Aurora Gate jumped into hyperspace, leaving a trail of silver light across the darkness. Somewhere beyond those stars, enslaved camps waited for liberation, and Zarkonian fleets waited to be challenged. But this time, the galaxy would not meet the same frightened girl who once whispered, "Please don't send me away." Now it would meet Zex of the Aurora, the girl who learned that kindness was the strongest weapon in the universe, and the human who taught her that compassion was not weakness, but power. And as their ship vanished into the deep, a single phrase echoed through the relays of 1,000 worlds, becoming a symbol of a new dawn. No one is useless when they choose to be kind.